Devin, I want to follow up what you have said, and you had told Abha something that it keeps coming to me throughout this FPO saga, which was where Devin had said that they might either have to extend the issue or reduce the price. That didn't happen because institutions jumped in. But the larger question that I want to ask you, Deven Choksey, is that given the, and they have given, let me put this on record, a 413-page reply to Hindenburg's 100-odd page questions, 88 questions. The question that I have for you, Deven Choksey, is does the Adani Group need to further clarify beyond what it has said on the issue of offshore investment vehicles, the manner in which some of these investments have been made, the questions that have been raised, allegations really around offshore entities, shell entities. Is there more work that the Adani Group has to do to reassure the public at large and investors on that specific aspect of the Hindenburg allegations?
So Siddharth, I'm glad that I think you touched upon this particular point. I think I have two things to submit here. If at all Adani Group has to give further explanation to this, who should be asking for this particular explanation? Should it be regulator or should it be a trader? If the regulator asks for this particular explanation, justified, because regulator has to manage this entire market in a systematic manner.
Yes.
Should a trader ask for this clarification? Answer may be yes, but I think is the trader giving enough amount of transparency? Is trader giving a transparency that why he shorted that non-Indian traded instruments, that too in the overseas market, when I think the traded market was available in India? Is trader giving that answer? Trader is not giving that answer. Is trader giving an answer that who are the investors behind this fund, who has basically given this money for shorting this particular stock? Is the trader giving answer? Answer is not available. So in my viewpoint, I think when the trader himself is not providing any kind of transparency, how is he justified in bringing further amount of questions for building further transparency? And if at all, I think that transparency is required in form of information, let it be asked by the regulator. Indian markets are fairly regulated.
Should the regulator ask this question, Deven, I'm sorry, I'm sorry to interrupt you, but I just want to clarify this point because you are making a very important point. Should the regulator have done more? And I'm saying this from the point that you are making. The regulator regulates the markets and is supposed to protect the interests of every single market participant who is registered lawful legally participating in the markets. Has the Indian regulatory system done enough when it comes to these allegations?
I would think that I think whatever the framework under which regulator has sought this information has been provided by the company. Whether I think they could have asked further more information, I would leave it to regulators. It is their prerogative. But I would definitely ask regulator that why I think the non-traded Indian instruments which are operating outside the country be allowed to be shorted and be allowed to create this kind of havoc. I think this question, I think the regulator will have to fill after a while now.
Okay. Yep. Rahul, let's bring you in on this as well. I mean, and you know, let's leave out a specific stock for a moment, but talk about this as best practice, because this issue is not going away. It's going to come out. We're anticipating the budget session of Parliament, and I'm sure we're going to hear more about this. Already during the economic survey, you know, there was a comment that was made by the Chief Economic Advisor saying this is related to a specific stock, but this was fielding off a whole variety of questions. And he said the same thing, that, you know, this is something for the regulators to manage. Are we looking for further answers here?
So I think, you know, Abha, this is obviously, I think while the discourse has been dominated by what's been happening, I think, you know, the Indian markets are a much bigger place to be than just a handful of stocks. And I think to that extent, I think, you know, life in many which ways has largely moved on, as the point has been made on your show as well. You know, there is a predominantly a large part of them are non-Indian institutional investors that have put in money into the FPO. So at least when we talk to our clients, you know, the discourse is pretty much centered around the cement assets, like I said, or maybe you know, the key infrastructure assets that they have. But beyond that, I think life to a large extent, especially for the domestic institutional investors, has moved on. You know, there is a full-fledged earnings season that's underway, and you know, for fund managers in a market like this, to be obsessed by just 4 or 5 stocks can be extremely suicidal. We have probably the biggest event of the year coming up in just about 12 hours from now, or even sooner. So I think there are other fish at play. I think, you know, I would not extrapolate anything out of this saga to question the ethics or the integrity or the transparency of the Indian market. I think we're in extremely fine fettle. I think the quarterly disclosures, I think Siddharth and Abha, if you go back 10 years and you saw how companies used to declare their results, today every company, when they declare their results, they actually put out their audited financial statements and a corporate presentation simultaneously. This didn't happen a decade back. So there is immense amount of transparency. There is segmental breakup that companies are giving you. There are, ad nauseum cash flows that you can go through.
Right.
Historical financials that companies themselves are providing. So I think the kind of information you have available to you to make an informed decision, I think, again, I'm not commenting on this one group or one entity. Like I said, my knowledge on this is particularly restricted. But I think when we look at the Indian market as a whole and to try and extrapolate this, I think is a bit of a stretch. I think, there are almost 5,000 listed securities in India. In any given group, barring the Tatas, you'll have 5 or 6 companies that are listed. So I think beyond the point, I think there's no point obsessing about a group of companies. I think there's a much larger play to be made here. Valuations have come down in so many stocks in so many sectors.